Ethan Reed spent his entire life being abused, ignored, and treated like a disposable stand-in husband, until a ruthless businessman woke up inside his body after a coma. Suddenly, the quiet husband who never fought back started destroying everyone who hurt him. His cheating family panicked. His cold husband became obsessed. And nobody realized the real Ethan was still there, listening to everything. Rain hammered against the hospital windows hard enough to sound violent. Adrian Vale hated hospitals. They smelled like chemicals, bad coffee, and lawsuits waiting to happen. His eyelids felt heavy. His chest burned. Somewhere nearby, machines beeped in steady rhythm. Alive. Annoying. The last thing Adrian remembered was headlights cutting across wet asphalt before a truck slammed into his car. Then darkness. Now this. A voice suddenly shrieked nearby. Ethan, stop pretending to sleep and apologize to your brother. Adrian opened his eyes slowly. A woman stood beside the hospital bed wearing enough diamonds to blind small nations. Her face twisted with disgust. Behind her stood a young man pretending to cry. A middle-aged man checked his watch like this entire scene interrupted something more important, like tax fraud. Adrian frowned. None of these people looked familiar. What? He rasped. The hell are you people? The room went silent. The crying boy gasped dramatically. Mom, he's doing it again. Again. The woman snapped forward. How dare you speak to me like that after what you did to Daniel? Adrian stared at her. Then at the crying decorative candle behind her. Then back at her. I don't know who Daniel is, Adrian said flatly. But if he cries this much daily, someone should water him less. The boy choked. The older man looked horrified. The woman nearly exploded. You ungrateful little dash. A sharp pain slammed into Adrian's head. Images flooded him instantly. Cold bedrooms. Bruises hidden under sleeves. A boy kneeling silently while people screamed at him. Wedding photos where the groom never smiled. A lonely figure sitting alone at birthday parties. Ethan Reed. The memories hit hard enough to make Adrian grip the bedsheets. Not his memories. Someone else's. Oh, this was bad. Very bad. Human consciousness transfer. Possession. Identity displacement. Whatever name science eventually gave it, Adrian wanted a refund immediately. The crying brother stepped closer carefully. Brother, are you okay? Adrian looked at him. Daniel Reed. Stepmother's son. Professional victim. Part-time snake. According to Ethan's memories, Daniel had spent years stealing everything from him. Attention. Praise. Friends. Even this marriage. Interesting. Adrian smiled suddenly. Daniel stepped back instinctively. Smartest thing he'd done all day. The woman crossed her arms. You embarrassed Daniel at the charity dinner, and now the Hartwell family is furious. Your husband hasn't visited once since you were hospitalized. Adrian blinked. Husband. Right. The memories returned again. Leon Hartwell. Cold. Wealthy. Emotionally constipated. Married Ethan only because the Reed family forced the arrangement through a business deal. Worse, Leon had been obsessed with his dead first love for years. Apparently, he treated grief like a personality trait. Adrian almost admired the dedication to misery. Almost. The father finally spoke. Once you leave the hospital, stop causing trouble. The Hartwell contract matters more than your feelings. Adrian slowly turned toward him. Did you just say that to your son? The man frowned. Watch your tone. No, Adrian said quietly. I don't think I will. The room froze. Because Ethan Reed never fought back. Never raised his voice. Never looked people in the eye. But Adrian Vale had once bankrupted a company during lunch because their CEO interrupted dessert. Different species entirely. The stepmother sneered. You should be grateful we even kept you after your mother died. Something cold entered Adrian's expression. Ethan's memories trembled painfully inside him. A staircase. A crying woman. A cheating husband screaming, while another woman watched smugly. His mother collapsing from stress years later. Adrian's jaw tightened. You mean after your affair killed her? He asked softly. Dead silence. Daniel whispered, Mom. The woman's face turned red instantly. You disgusting little dash. She raised her hand. Adrian caught her wrist midair. effortlessly. The woman stared at him in shock. So this is why Ethan stopped defending himself, Adrian said calmly. Because you people are insane. The father slammed a hand onto the bed rail. Enough. Adrian looked at him lazily. No. Something terrifying flickered behind his eyes. For years, you abused your son, stole his mother's company shares, married your mistress, forced him into a business marriage, and expected obedience in return. You're either confident no one can stop you, or incredibly stupid. The father looked genuinely stunned. Good. People like him relied on fear. Adrian had none left to give. Daniel suddenly stepped forward with trembling eyes. Brother, please don't be angry. Mom was only worried about me. Adrian turned slowly. Ethan's memories whispered again. Daniel crying on purpose whenever Ethan received attention. Daniel lying about injuries. Daniel stealing credit for Ethan's work. Daniel secretly telling Leon that Ethan trapped him into marriage. What a fascinating little parasite. Adrian smiled warmly. You know, he said, if manipulation was an Olympic sport, you'd finally make your parents proud. Daniel's face cracked. The stepmother shrieked. A nurse burst into the room in panic. What is happening here? Adrian pointed at the family. Emotional terrorism mostly. 2 hours later, the Reed family left furious after Adrian threatened to expose old financial records publicly. Now the hospital room finally felt quiet. Adrian leaned back against the pillows, then nearly jumped when a soft voice echoed inside his head. You really said all that? Adrian went still. The voice sounded fragile. Nervous. Young. Not his own. He closed his eyes slowly. Ethan. Well, Adrian muttered internally. Either I'm hallucinating or you're sharing brain space with me. A long silence followed. Then, I'm sorry. Adrian frowned instantly. For what? For dragging you into this. Something about the apology irritated him unexpectedly. Ethan sounded genuinely guilty, like existing itself required permission. Adrian rubbed his forehead. This family abused you for years, your husband ignored you, and somehow you're apologizing to me. Incredible. Humans really will apologize for weather conditions if given enough trauma. A tiny sound escaped Ethan. Not crying. A laugh. Small. Weak. Rusty from disuse. Adrian paused. Then sighed. Great. Now he cared. Terrible development. What exactly happened before the accident? Adrian asked internally. Ethan hesitated. I overheard my father talking. He said once the Hartwell contract finished, they'd send me away permanently. Adrian's expression darkened. And I think the hospital accident wasn't accidental. That got Adrian's full attention. Outside the room, thunder cracked across the sky. Inside, Adrian smiled slowly. Coldly. Because if someone caused both accidents intentionally, then this situation had transformed from inconvenient to personal. And Adrian Vale was many things. Merciful was not one of them. Leon Hartwell hated hospitals almost as much as he hated emotional conversations. Unfortunately, his mother loved both. You should visit your spouse, Evelyn Hartwell said sharply while adjusting her silk gloves. People are talking. Leon barely looked up from the contract in his hands. Let them. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Your dead lover has been gone for 5 years. Continuing to punish Ethan for existing makes you look pathetic. Leon's jaw tightened instantly. There it was. The family hobby. Poking emotional landmines for entertainment. He agreed to the marriage, Leon said coldly. Evelyn gave him a look usually reserved for disappointing politicians. That boy looked terrified during the entire wedding. Leon said nothing. Because it was true. Ethan Reed had stood beside him in white formal wear, looking pale enough to disappear into the flowers. Quiet. Polite. Painfully easy to ignore. Leon had done exactly that. At the time, he told himself it was easier this way. No attachment. No expectations. No betrayal. Simple. Except apparently his simple arrangement now involved public rumors, hospital scandals, and his spouse threatening the Reed family like an unhinged lawyer possessed by caffeine and vengeance. His assistant cleared his throat carefully. Sir, there's also another issue. Leon looked up. The Reed family says Mr. Reed has been acting strangely since the accident. Leon snorted lightly. Strangely how? The assistant hesitated. He threw tea at Madam Reed. What? And called Daniel Reed an emotionally manipulative houseplant. Leon slowly lowered the contract. Interesting. Very interesting. Because Ethan Reed usually apologized when people stepped on his shoes. Meanwhile, this version apparently fought like he had unresolved war crimes. Evelyn looked delighted. Oh, I like him already. Leon ignored her. Half an hour later, he walked into Ethan's hospital room expecting awkward silence. Instead, he found Ethan sitting cross-legged on the bed eating expensive fruit while reading financial reports. The sight alone felt wrong. Ethan noticed him immediately, then smiled. Not warmly, predatorily. Leon stopped walking. You look healthy. Thank you, Ethan replied. Near-death experiences really improve skin quality. Highly recommend. Leon blinked once. Who is this person? The voice was the same. The face was the same. But the atmosphere felt completely different. Before, Ethan always looked fragile, like someone waiting for permission to breathe. Now he lounged against hospital pillows like he owned the building. Leon watched him carefully. You insulted the Reed family. Ethan bit into an apple. Several times. You embarrassed Daniel publicly. He survived. Miraculously. Leon frowned. This shouldn't have been entertaining. And yet, against his better judgment, something dangerous flickered in his chest. Interest. Ethan tilted his head slightly. You're staring. You changed. Well, death gives people hobbies. Leon moved closer slowly. The closer he got, the stranger this felt. For months, Ethan barely looked him in the eye. Now he held Leon's gaze without hesitation. Steady. Sharp. Fearless. It irritated Leon immediately. Naturally, this irritation made him want to stay longer. Human psychology remained a poorly designed disaster. You should stop provoking your family, Leon said finally. Ethan laughed softly. Leon froze again. Not because of the sound, because Ethan's laugh held genuine amusement instead of nervous restraint. You know what's fascinating? Ethan said. Everyone keeps telling the victim to behave better instead of telling abusers to stop being monsters. Leon's expression cooled. You think you're a victim? Ethan lowered the apple slowly. The room became quiet. Then he asked calmly, Do you know what your husband's favorite food is? Leon didn't answer. Favorite color? Silence. What medicine he's allergic to? Leon's jaw tightened. Ethan smiled faintly. Exactly. For the first time since entering the room, Leon felt uncomfortable. Not angry. Not defensive. Uncomfortable. Because the truth sat there between them like broken glass. He knew almost nothing about Ethan Reed. Not because Ethan hid himself. Because Leon never cared enough to ask. Inside Adrian's mind, Ethan whispered weakly. You don't have to say this. Adrian mentally rolled his eyes. You spent 2 years married to this emotionally unavailable refrigerator. I'm saying everything. A tiny embarrassed noise echoed in his head. Cute. In a psychologically concerning way. Leon suddenly spoke. You're blaming me for your family's actions. No, Ethan replied evenly. I blame you for watching it happen and deciding it wasn't your problem. That landed. Leon's expression hardened instantly. Careful. There it is, Ethan said with a grin. The famous Hartwell intimidation technique. Very dramatic. Needs originality. Leon stepped closer to the bed. Most people backed away when he looked at them like this. Ethan looked entertained instead. Do you want something from me? Leon asked quietly. Yes. What? Divorce papers. Leon stared at him. Unexpected irritation flashed through him. Fast. Sharp. Ridiculous. You wanted this marriage. No, Ethan corrected calmly. I wanted survival. Different thing. Leon suddenly remembered the wedding again. Ethan standing silently while his father handled negotiations. Daniel crying dramatically in another room. The Reed family pushing Ethan forward like disposable packaging. At the time, Leon ignored the discomfort in his gut, because none of it concerned him. Now that memory felt uglier. Ethan leaned back lazily. Relax. I know you're still emotionally married to your dead lover. The air turned dangerous instantly. Leon's voice dropped coldly. Don't talk about him. Ethan studied him for a moment, then sighed. You know what your problem is? Leon crossed his arms. You confuse grief with loyalty. That hit harder than expected. For a second, Leon genuinely couldn't speak. Because somewhere deep down, beneath years of bitterness and guilt, he knew that sentence was true. His first love had died years ago. But Leon stayed frozen beside that grave emotionally, using loss as an excuse to avoid living. Ethan continued quietly. And while you were worshipping memories, you ignored the living person right in front of you. Silence swallowed the room. Inside Adrian's head, Ethan whispered shakily, Why are you helping me? Adrian answered immediately, Because someone should have years ago. The silence afterward felt painfully soft. Leon finally exhaled slowly. You really are different. Adrian almost answered honestly. You have no idea. But before he could speak, the hospital television suddenly switched to breaking news. Reporter. Shares of Reed Corporation are falling after anonymous allegations of internal fraud connected to senior executives. Ethan's eyes sharpened instantly. Interesting timing. Too interesting. Then his phone buzzed. A text message appeared from an unknown number. Stop digging or the next accident won't fail. Adrian stared at the screen, then smiled slowly, cold enough to freeze oceans. Across from him, Leon noticed. And for the first time since meeting Ethan Reed, Leon Hartwell felt afraid for someone else. By the next morning, Adrian had 3 confirmed facts. First, someone inside Reed Corporation was panicking. Second, Ethan's father was absolutely involved in financial fraud. Third, Leon Hartwell kept showing up everywhere like an emotionally confused security guard. Adrian walked into the Hartwell mansion dining room wearing Ethan's usual soft beige clothes. Except now somehow they looked expensive instead of apologetic. Amazing what basic self-respect did for posture. Leon sat at the table reading financial reports. His coffee remained untouched. Interesting. A man who usually functioned through caffeine withdrawal and hostility looked distracted. Adrian sat across from him. Leon glanced up briefly. You're awake early. You sound disappointed. I'm cautious. Same thing with richer vocabulary. Leon ignored that. A servant placed breakfast plates carefully between them. The atmosphere remained tense for exactly 7 seconds before Adrian picked up his juice and casually asked, So, how long were you planning to emotionally imprison yourself over your dead boyfriend? The servant almost dropped a tray. Leon looked up slowly. You wake up every morning and choose violence. No, Adrian said while buttering toast. Violence usually chooses me first. Inside his mind, Ethan groaned softly. You can't keep provoking him. He keeps surviving it, Adrian replied internally. Honestly, I'm starting to respect the durability. Leon placed his utensils down carefully. You know nothing about my relationship with Julian. Adrian noticed it immediately. Not love. Not him. Julian. Using the name made the grief human instead of mythical. Good. Dead people shouldn't become altars people sacrifice their lives to forever. That was unhealthy and also deeply inconvenient for everyone nearby. I know enough, Adrian replied calmly. You loved him. Leon's expression tightened. You lost him. Silence. And now you punish yourself by refusing to move on. Leon's jaw flexed once. You think recovery is that simple? No, Adrian answered honestly. I think hiding inside grief is simpler. That landed badly. Excellent. Leon stood abruptly. The chair scraped sharply across marble. You're becoming arrogant. Adrian looked unimpressed. And you're becoming emotionally defensive. We all have hobbies. Leon stared at him for a long moment before leaving the dining room without another word. The servant whispered under his breath as soon as Leon disappeared. Sir, respectfully, how are you still alive? Adrian smiled faintly. Excellent reflexes. By noon, Adrian sat inside Ethan's old bedroom at the Reed estate, surrounded by financial documents stolen directly from the company archives. Well, borrowed aggressively. Same difference. Ethan spoke quietly inside his head. I used to organize those files for father. Adrian flipped another page. and he rewarded your hard work by stealing your inheritance. Human parenting continues disappointing me. The documents confirmed everything. Ethan's mother originally owned 60% of Reed Corporation shares. After her death, those shares should have transferred to Ethan legally. Instead, Ethan's father forged temporary guardianship clauses and transferred operational control to himself for asset protection. Translation: theft wearing a necktie. Adrian's expression darkened. Then the bedroom door opened violently. Daniel stormed inside dramatically. Naturally, the man entered rooms like soap opera background music followed him everywhere. You've been spying on father. Adrian didn't even look up. You've been breathing loudly for 2 minutes outside the door. Daniel froze, then immediately switched tactics. Tears filled his eyes. Impressive. No emotional transition period whatsoever. Olympic-level manipulation. Brother, Daniel whispered shakily. Why are you treating us like enemies? Adrian finally looked at him. Because you are. Daniel flinched. Good. You stole my marriage, Adrian continued. My inheritance. My mother's company. My father's attention. Frankly, I'm surprised you didn't steal oxygen too. That's not true. Adrian held up a document calmly. This signature here belongs to your mother during a period when she was vacationing overseas. Which means either she learned teleportation or someone committed fraud. Daniel's face lost color instantly. There it was. Fear. Real fear. Not fake crying. Adrian leaned back slowly. Tell me something, Daniel. Did you know they planned to kill Ethan eventually? Daniel's breathing stopped. Tiny reaction. Tiny mistake. Adrian noticed immediately. Inside his head, Ethan trembled. They wouldn't. They would, Adrian answered internally, voice colder now. People willing to destroy you slowly usually aren't picky about methods. Daniel suddenly snapped. You think you're better than us now? Adrian blinked. Better than people who abused a grieving child for 15 years? He tilted his head thoughtfully. Yes. Massively. Daniel grabbed the papers angrily. You can't prove anything. Actually, Adrian said lightly, I already sent copies to my lawyer this morning. Daniel froze. Then the bedroom door opened again. Leon stepped inside. Silence hit instantly. Daniel looked alarmed. Leon, thank God. Ethan's gone insane. Leon's gaze shifted between them slowly, then landed on the scattered financial files. His expression sharpened immediately. What are these? Adrian answered first. Evidence. Daniel snapped. He's lying. Leon picked up one document quietly. The longer he read, the colder his face became. Ah, there it was. The terrifying Hartwell business mode people warned others about. Even Daniel stepped backward instinctively. Leon looked at him once. Leave. Daniel paled. But Dash. Now. Daniel left immediately. Cowardice. Nature's fastest transportation method. Once the door closed, Leon placed the file down carefully. Why didn't you tell me any of this before? Adrian almost laughed. Ethan whispered sadly inside him. Because I knew nobody would care. That hurt more than Adrian expected. So he answered out loud instead. Would you have listened? Leon said nothing. Exactly. Adrian stood and walked toward the window. Rain clouds gathered outside again. Dramatic weather continued stalking this family. Very committed atmosphere. You know, Adrian said quietly. Ethan used to wait for you. Leon looked up sharply. Every night after dinner, Adrian continued. Even when you ignored him for weeks. Even when your staff treated him like furniture. Leon's face changed slightly. Not defensive this time. Ashamed. He kept thinking maybe if he tried harder, you'd eventually see him. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Breathing. Then Adrian turned around. But now, he said calmly. Too late. Something dangerous flickered across Leon's expression. Panic. Small. Barely visible. But there. And Adrian suddenly understood. Leon Hartwell was falling in love with Ethan. Right when Ethan had finally stopped loving him back. Beautiful. Poetic. Absolutely deserved. Leon stepped closer slowly. What do you want from me? Adrian answered instantly. Nothing. That hit harder than screaming ever could. Leon stared at him for several long seconds before asking quietly, "Is there really no chance left?" Inside Adrian's mind, Ethan went painfully silent. Adrian looked directly at Leon, then spoke with brutal honesty. "You didn't notice him when he was breaking." A pause. "So you don't get to keep him now that he's healed." Leon Hartwell did not sleep that night, which was inconvenient because billion-dollar mergers apparently still required consciousness. He sat alone in his office staring at the city lights while Adrian's words replayed endlessly in his head. "You didn't notice him when he was breaking." The sentence carved straight through him because it was true. Not partially true. Not emotionally exaggerated. True in the ugliest possible way. Leon remembered every moment now with horrifying clarity. Ethan sitting quietly at dinner while everyone talked over him. Ethan waiting near the front door whenever Leon came home late. Ethan learning Leon's coffee preferences despite Leon never learning anything about him. Tiny things. Invisible things. The kind people only noticed after they were already gone. Human beings really were experts at valuing someone 5 minutes after destroying them. Pathetic species. A knock interrupted the silence. "Enter." His assistant stepped inside carefully. "Sir, the board meeting starts in 20 minutes. Leon rubbed his forehead tiredly. "And Reed Corporation?" The assistant hesitated. "Internal investors are turning against Chairman Reed. Someone anonymously leaked evidence of asset fraud online last night." Leon already knew who. Or rather, whoever Ethan had become. The terrifying part was that Leon no longer wanted to stop him. The terrifying part was that Leon wanted to help. Meanwhile, across the city, Adrian sat inside a luxury cafe, wearing sunglasses while Ethan panicked internally. "This is illegal." Adrian sipped coffee calmly. "No. Insider trading is illegal. This is revenge with paperwork." Ethan sounded horrified. "You hacked their private accounts." "I delegated hacking." Important distinction. On the table sat 3 phones, confidential financial records, and a blueberry tart Adrian stole from another meeting table because the waiter ignored him for 6 minutes. Justice came in many forms. A man approached nervously. "Mr. Reed?" Adrian looked up. The man immediately regretted existing. "Excellent. I'm Attorney Wells," the man said quickly. "You requested legal representation for divorce proceedings and inheritance recovery." Adrian gestured toward the chair. "Sit. Bring courage." The lawyer sat carefully. After reviewing the evidence for 20 minutes, the poor man looked spiritually exhausted. "Your father could face criminal charges. He deserves worse. And your husband?" Adrian leaned back lazily. "What about him?" The lawyer cleared his throat. "Well, according to these records, Mr. Hartwell secretly blocked several business attempts from your family to remove you from the company entirely." Adrian blinked once. "Interesting. Very interesting." Inside his mind, Ethan sounded stunned. "Leon did that?" Adrian frowned slightly. Because the files were legitimate. Leon had quietly interfered multiple times over the past year whenever Ethan's father tried pushing him completely out of shareholder meetings. Not publicly. Not kindly. But consistently. That complicated things. Adrian disliked complications. They interrupted efficient revenge. The lawyer continued nervously. "There's more. Mr. Hartwell also transferred personal funds into your hospital account after your accident." Ethan fell silent. Adrian stared at the papers thoughtfully. So Leon had noticed things. Just not enough. Too little. Too late. The cafe television suddenly switched to breaking business news. Reporter. Chairman Victor Reed has been accused of embezzlement and fraudulent share transfers involving the late Evelyn Reed's estate. Adrian smiled slowly. Beautiful. Nature healing. The lawyer looked terrified again. "You leaked this to the media?" Adrian took another sip of coffee. "The media leaked it to themselves. I merely opened the cage and let greedy journalists smell blood." His phone rang suddenly. "Leon." Adrian stared at the screen. Ethan whispered softly. "Please answer." Adrian sighed dramatically. "Fine. But if he starts emotionally suffering too hard, I'm hanging up." He answered calmly. "What?" Leon ignored the hostility immediately. "Where are you?" What an aggressive way to ask someone on a date. You're on a date? No. But you sounded jealous, so I wanted to enrich the experience. Silence. Then Leon exhaled sharply. There's a warrant being prepared for your father's arrest. I know. You knew beforehand? Leon, Adrian said gently. I literally caused it. Another silence. Leon sounded tired when he spoke again. Meet me tonight. Why? I need to tell you something. Adrian almost refused. But something in Leon's voice stopped him. Not authority. Not coldness. Fear. Real fear. Hours later, Adrian arrived at the Hartwell family greenhouse just after sunset. Warm golden lights glowed softly beneath glass ceilings while rain tapped gently overhead. Leon stood near the roses waiting. He looked exhausted. Good. Character development. Adrian walked closer. You look like a divorced Victorian nobleman. Leon ignored that. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Leon quietly asked, Who are you? Adrian froze internally. Dangerous question. Too perceptive. Ethan panicked instantly. He knows. Relax, Adrian answered internally. Humans never jump directly to possession. They assume trauma first. Leon stepped closer slowly. You walk differently. Talk differently. You hate different foods now. Even your handwriting changed. Adrian kept his expression calm. Maybe nearly dying changes people. Not this much. Silence stretched between them. Rain softened outside the glass. Leon looked directly into his eyes. I failed you. The honesty startled both Adrian and Ethan. Leon's voice lowered further. When Julian died, I convinced myself loving someone only ended badly. So I stopped trying. His hands tightened slowly at his sides. But you were standing beside me the entire time, and he laughed bitterly. I treated you like a burden I inherited. Inside Adrian's mind, Ethan trembled painfully. Because this was everything he once wanted to hear. Too late. Always too late. Leon stepped forward again. I know I don't deserve another chance. Correct. But I still want one. Adrian looked at him quietly. Then finally spoke. You're apologizing to the version of Ethan that learned how to survive. Leon's expression shifted. Adrian's voice softened slightly. But where were you when he was too scared to speak at all? Leon had no answer. Because there wasn't one. The silence afterward felt unbearable. Then suddenly Adrian's vision blurred violently. Pain exploded through his skull. Ethan gasped inside him. Adrian staggered backward hard enough to hit the glass wall. Leon moved instantly. Ethan! Another sharp pain tore through Adrian's chest. Memories flashed rapidly. Hospital lights. Machines. Voices shouting. His real body. Waking up. Oh no. Adrian realized it immediately. The connection was breaking. He looked up sharply at Leon. And for the first time since all this began, fear hit him too. Because he wasn't ready to leave Ethan alone yet. Pain dragged Adrian upward like drowning in reverse. Voices echoed nearby. Machines beeped steadily. Something sharp pressed against his arm. Hospital again. Human existence really was just paperwork and medical bills stitched together with emotional damage. Adrian forced his eyes open. White ceiling. Private recovery room. His own body. Oh, thank God. Being 6'2" again felt fantastic. A doctor nearly dropped a tablet when he noticed Adrian awake. Mr. Vale. Adrian's throat burned. You look distressed. You were in a coma for over a month. Skill issue. The doctor stared at him in exhausted disbelief. Fair reaction. Hours later, after surviving medical evaluations, screaming shareholders, crying employees, and one extremely dramatic aunt threatening to sue destiny itself, Adrian finally sat alone in silence. And immediately felt something missing. No quiet voice in the back of his mind. No hesitant comments. No Ethan. The emptiness bothered him more than expected. Annoying. Across the city, Ethan Reed stood in front of a courtroom while reporters exploded into chaos around him. Cameras flashed endlessly. Mr. Reed, are the fraud allegations true? Did Chairman Reed illegally steal company shares? Is your divorce from Leon Hartwell finalized? Ethan inhaled slowly. 1 month ago, he would have collapsed under this pressure. Now he lifted his chin calmly. Yes, he answered evenly. The evidence speaks for itself. His father was arrested 3 days earlier. His stepmother lost every social connection she spent years clawing for. Daniel disappeared from public view after leaked recordings exposed years of manipulation and false accusations. And today Ethan officially reclaimed ownership of Reed Corporation under his mother's name. Victory should have felt satisfying. Instead, his chest hurt, because Adrian was gone. The divorce finalized quietly 2 weeks after Adrian disappeared from his body. Leon signed immediately. No arguments. No manipulation. No desperate promises. Just one sentence spoken softly across the lawyer's office. I hope someone finally loves you correctly. Ethan nearly cried hearing it, because Leon meant it sincerely, and because part of Ethan would probably always mourn what they could have been in another life. But not enough to go back. Never enough for that. That chapter had ended. Tonight marked Ethan's first major appearance as the new CEO of Reed Corporation. The ballroom glittered with wealth, politics, and fake smiles sharp enough to cut skin. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks nervously near the entrance. "You're shaking," his assistant whispered. "I'm about to face 300 rich people pretending to respect me," Ethan muttered. Naturally. Then the ballroom doors opened again, and Ethan forgot how breathing worked. Adrian Vale walked inside wearing a black suit like he personally invented intimidation. Tall, sharp-eyed, alive. The entire room shifted subtly around him. Power recognized power. Meanwhile, Ethan's brain completely malfunctioned. "Oh no," he whispered internally. His assistant frowned. "Sir, that man is a problem." Adrian spotted him immediately across the ballroom, then smiled slowly. Warm this time. Not cruel. Not mocking. Just real. Ethan's heart slammed violently against his ribs, which was frankly humiliating. He was a grown man, a CEO, a successful businessman, and yet one stupid smile turned him into emotional soup. Human dignity truly remained temporary. Adrian walked toward him through the crowd. People moved aside instinctively. Predator energy. Very illegal levels of confidence. When he finally stopped in front of Ethan, silence stretched between them. Neither spoke at first. Then Adrian tilted his head slightly. "You look healthier." Ethan laughed weakly. "You stole all my fear before leaving." Something soft flickered across Adrian's face. Good. He deserved softness after surviving this disaster of a family. For a second, neither moved. Then Ethan blurted suddenly. "I looked for you." Excellent. Straight to emotional honesty. No survival instinct whatsoever. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "I searched every hospital report after hearing about Adrian Vale waking up," Ethan continued rapidly. "Then I found old business articles and realized." His voice softened. "It was really you." Adrian watched him quietly. The ballroom noise faded into background static. Ethan swallowed hard. "I missed you." That one nearly destroyed Adrian unexpectedly. Because Ethan said it so simply. No manipulation. No performance. Just truth. Adrian exhaled slowly. Dangerous man. Then Ethan added in one breath. "And I think I fell in love with you somewhere between threatening my father and stealing desserts from strangers." Adrian stared at him. "You remembered that? You stole 3 cakes. They were unattended. That's still theft. Morally flexible theft." Ethan laughed. A real laugh this time. Bright. Free. Nothing like the frightened silence Adrian first encountered inside that hospital room. And suddenly Adrian realized something terrifying. He would absolutely ruin people for this man. Gladly. Ethan looked nervous again. "I know this is sudden, but I dash. You talk too much when anxious." Ethan froze. Adrian stepped closer. Then quietly said, "You were already my fiancé before any of this happened." Silence. "What?" Adrian reached inside his suit pocket and pulled out an old photograph. 2 teenage girls smiled brightly at the camera while standing arm in arm beneath cherry blossom trees. Their mothers. On the back, faded handwriting read, "Our children will definitely marry each other someday." Ethan's eyes widened slowly. Adrian explained quietly, "Our mothers were best friends in high school. Before moving away, they promised their firstborn children would marry someday. He pulled out two tiny silver bracelets next. One engraved with Ethan. The other Adrian. My mother spent years searching after we lost contact. Adrian's voice softened slightly. I continued after she died. Ethan's eyes turned red instantly. You were looking for me? For years. The ballroom disappeared entirely around them. No cameras. No business rivals. No painful past. Just two people standing there after surviving enough loneliness to last several lifetimes. Ethan laughed shakily through tears. So technically, Adrian smirked faintly. Yes, the universe apparently trapped me inside your body because fate lacks subtlety. Ethan covered his face, half laughing, half crying. That sounds insane. It was deeply inconvenient. Then Ethan looked at him again. Carefully. Softly. But you still came back. Adrian's expression gentled. Always would. And this time, when Adrian reached for him, Ethan didn't hesitate at all. Because for the first time in his life, someone chose him first. Not the stand-in. Not the replacement. Not the unwanted son. Just Ethan. Exactly as he was. Somewhere far away, the storm finally ended. Rain tapped softly against the apartment windows while the city lights blurred gold and silver outside. For once, everything felt quiet. No reporters. No lawsuits. No revenge plans. No Reed family disasters crawling out of hell like emotionally unstable cockroaches. Just peace. Ethan sat curled against Adrian on the massive living room couch, wearing one of Adrian's black sweaters that swallowed him whole. The sleeves covered half his hands. Adrian glanced down from the business report he was pretending to read. You've been staring at the same page for 10 minutes, Ethan murmured sleepily. Adrian looked offended. I'm multitasking. You're holding the report upside down. A pause. Corporate innovation. Ethan laughed softly against his shoulder. That sound still affected Adrian in deeply inconvenient ways. A few months ago, Ethan barely spoke above a whisper. Now he laughed easily, argued confidently, and occasionally stole food directly from Adrian's plate with absolutely no fear of death. Growth. Beautiful. Terrifying. The television played quietly in the background while rain filled the silence between them. Ethan traced lazy circles against Adrian's hand. Then his voice softened slightly. There's something I still don't understand. Adrian hummed. Only one thing? Your recovery is progressing rapidly. Ethan pinched his side immediately. Adrian barely reacted. Violence again, he sighed. This relationship lacks emotional safety. You deserve worse. True. Ethan shifted closer against him before speaking again. The accidents. The room grew quieter. Even the rain suddenly sounded distant. Ethan looked down at their intertwined hands. You knew something before anyone else did, he said softly. Back then in the hospital, the way you reacted to the message. Adrian's expression stilled slightly. This conversation. Honestly, he'd expected it earlier. Humans eventually demanded emotional honesty in relationships. Very unreasonable behavior. Ethan lifted his head slowly. Who caused it? For a moment, Adrian said nothing. Then he closed the report quietly and set it aside. The movement alone made Ethan tense. Because Adrian only became this serious when something truly mattered. Finally, Adrian spoke. Victor Reed. Ethan froze instantly. My father, unfortunately. The word came out flat and cold. Rain continued against the glass while Ethan stared at him silently. Adrian exhaled slowly before continuing. He arranged both accidents. The air left Ethan's lungs. For a second, he genuinely couldn't process the words. Adrian's gaze darkened slightly. I was already investigating Reed Corporation before the crash, he explained quietly. At first, I was only searching for your family. Ethan blinked slowly. My family? Adrian stood from the couch and walked toward the bookshelf near the fireplace. He opened a drawer carefully, then returned holding an old photograph. Ethan took it with trembling fingers. Two young women smiled brightly beneath cherry blossom trees. One was Ethan's mother. The other, your mother, Ethan whispered. Adrian nodded once. They were inseparable in high school. After both families moved away, they lost contact. Ethan stared at the photo silently. His mother looked so happy there. Alive. warm, untouched by betrayal yet. Something painful tightened in his chest. Adrian sat beside him again before continuing. My mother kept trying to find your family for years. She never forgot the promise they made. The marriage promise. Yes. Ethan looked down again. The photo trembled slightly in his hands. After my mother died, Adrian continued quietly, I found letters, old addresses, and business documents connected to Reed Corporation. His expression hardened. At first I thought it was coincidence. But it wasn't. Adrian discovered. Evelyn Reed's missing inheritance shares. Forged legal transfers. Shell companies tied to Victor Reed. And financial corruption hidden inside the company. The deeper he investigated, the uglier things became. Then he found Ethan. Or rather, found evidence of what Ethan's life had become. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. You disappeared from public records for years, he said quietly. No social events. No interviews. Almost no photographs unless your family forced you into them. Ethan lowered his eyes. Of course. His family hated displaying him publicly unless necessary. Adrian looked at him carefully. When I finally saw you at your wedding announcement, his voice softened unexpectedly. You looked miserable. Ethan laughed weakly. That obvious? To someone looking specifically for you? Yes. Silence settled briefly. Then Ethan frowned slightly. You were already searching for me before everything happened? For years. The answer came immediately. No hesitation. No embarrassment. Just truth. And somehow that hurt Ethan more than anything else. Because while Ethan spent years believing nobody would ever willingly choose him, someone had already been trying to find him all along. Adrian leaned back against the couch quietly. Victor Reed eventually discovered someone was investigating the company finances. His eyes turned colder. He also realized you were still the legal heir to your mother's shares. Ethan's breathing slowed. Understanding arrived piece by piece now. He wanted both problems gone, Ethan whispered. Yes. Adrian's voice remained calm, but Ethan could feel the anger underneath it. He arranged my car accident while planning your hospital accident the same night. Ethan went pale instantly. So when I fell down those stairs, you didn't fall. The words cut through the room sharply. Adrian looked directly at him. You were pushed. Silence crashed down. Ethan suddenly remembered fragments he buried years ago. A hand behind him. The smell of alcohol. Someone arguing downstairs moments before the fall. His father's unusually calm face at the hospital afterward. Oh God. His own father really tried to kill him. Ethan's hands started shaking. Immediately Adrian reached over and pulled the photograph gently from his grip before it bent. Then he wrapped an arm around Ethan's waist automatically. Protectively. Steady. Ethan buried his face against Adrian's chest without thinking. For a moment neither spoke. Rain filled the silence softly. Finally Ethan whispered, If everything had gone normally, would you still have found me? Adrian looked down at him. Such a dangerous question. Because the answer mattered more than revenge now. More than fate. More than possession. This question asked something simpler. Would you have chosen me anyway? Adrian touched Ethan's hair gently. I was already trying to. That nearly broke him. Ethan's eyes burned instantly. Adrian sighed softly above him. You know, he muttered, most people flirt normally. We apparently required attempted murder and supernatural identity theft. A weak laugh escaped Ethan. Adrian continued dryly. The universe has terrible communication skills. Ethan finally looked up at him. But you still came back. Adrian's expression softened completely now. Always dangerous when Ethan looked at him like that. Too trusting. Too open. Too precious. I told you before, Adrian murmured quietly. Always would. Ethan kissed him before Adrian could say anything else. Soft. Warm. Certain. No fear left in it anymore. And as Adrian pulled him closer against the sound of rain and distant city lights, one thought settled quietly between them both. After everything that tried to tear them apart, they still found each other in the end.